Welcome to this presentation. How are you doing? It's been a while. So, today we'll just be reflecting on patterns. Patterns as regards our personal life, relationships with other people, patterns in the family, and patterns as regards marriage. The truth is, many times, at least if we want to talk particularly about marriage, one member of the marriage, one party comes with a pattern from their own family of origin. What do I mean? Maybe the husband's parents or the husband's father struggled with infidelity. It takes the man being aware and being intentional that affliction will not rise a second time for him not to toe that same path. Now, same thing, you also have, maybe you have a young man that the father struggled with alcoholism. Many times there is a genetic predisposition that is both biologic, that is psychological, that is also spiritual, that it takes intentionality and a lot of hard work on the part of the son, in this case, to not activate what has been triggered or what has been planted down the tapestry of their genetics. The truth is, patterns go as far back as the Bible. So we'll look at what happened in the Bible. Then I have some poignant question about our lives now, just for some points of reflection. If you look at the story of Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, then Joseph. If we start with Abraham had Ishmael by the slave girl, Hagar. But by the time Sarah would have Isaac, there was a rift between the two children, and Sarah insisted that Ishmael be sent away. And Ishmael was the first son who had to be sent away. And I believe, at least going down the line by how this family turned out, that the seed for a child being sent away was planted. What do I mean? Because by the time you come to Isaac had two sons again. He had Esau and Jacob. And then these two parents, or maybe I would say Rachel in this case, loved Jacob more than Esau, because Jacob was the mommy's boy, Esau was an outdoor man. But again, I also want to believe that Isaac, in a bid to compensate, also loved Jacob. But what would happen? The same seed of favoritism that led to a child being sent away took root in this same family again. And after Jacob cheated Esau of the birthright and stole his blessing, and Esau was planning to kill him, Jacob had to be sent away to Laban in Padan Aram to go and stay with Rebecca's uncle. Then fast forward 14 years later, Jacob comes back from Haran's place. The name is a bit weird to pronounce. And then he comes back with 7 sons. But what happens? Joseph, again, was also sent, but in this case was sold by his brothers to Egypt. I want to believe that Jacob was the man who chose to break the jinx. And he chose to break the jinx because he was a man who lived a life of sacrifice, a life of purity, a life that stuck with God in spite of all his challenges. Because if you look at the other people's life, everybody tried their best. Abraham, our father of faith, still slept with the slave girl. Abraham, our father of faith, lied twice that the wife, Sarah, wasn't his wife, that Sarah was his sister, and the wife could very well have been taken in that situation. But let's look at Joseph. This was a young boy in Potiphar's house, and Potiphar's wife was after him, and he chose not to sleep with her and sin against God. That for me is like still the very first step of faith, of fortitude in the face of confounding circumstances. Because You look at it critically, there was nothing for him to lose. He was in a foreign land. Nobody knew him. None of his family were there. Nobody would have gone back to tell his father that now he's doing this. And Potiphar's wife could very well have kept quiet, and the whole charade will just continue. But he chose God rather than choose comfort. But then choosing God did not really get him in a nice place sooner, because he ended up in prison. And Bible scholars will estimate that he spent an average of 13 to 15 years in prison before he became the prime minister of Egypt. Now, what am I trying to draw out from this? Joseph eventually, for me, was the sacrificial lamb of that family, because by the time the 12 tribes of Israel will be counted later, Joseph was out, replaced by Ephraim and Manasseh, who were the sons of Joseph. And if you also remember the time when Jacob was trying to bless the two sons, Jacob crossed his hands like this in a bid to repeat what happened with Jacob and Esau, because Jacob stole the birthright and the birthright was switched. So he crossed his hand and making Ephraim greater than Manasseh. Biologically, by birth, Manasseh came before Ephraim. Joseph called it out then. His calling it out was a testament to the fact that he wasn't willing to do the path that the family had told, because accepting that would also have activated the seed further for another child to be sent away. But you see down the line, eventually the old 12 tribes of Israel continued, and we have Ephraim and Manasseh replacing Joseph. Now, the other story of patterns that is also quite interesting in the Bible is that of Solomon. Solomon was a man, the wisest man, but in my own opinion, he died a foolish man. Why did I say that? The wisest man who ever lived became a king at the age of 12, had a dream from God. God gave him wisdom. I mean, it doesn't get better than that. This is God leading you to lead his people. But he needed 700 wives and 300 concubines. I'm a woman. One wife is enough. I mean, enough hassle, enough hard work, enough chiseling for God to help you become who you want to be. But when you say 700 and then 300, in my own opinion, that was some form of sexual addiction. But then how did it start? Let's trace it back. The father of Solomon, as we all know, is David. What did David do? David slept with Uriah's wife, Bathsheba, and got him killed. The aftermath of that was that 4 out of David's sons died from consequences of sexual sins. 4 recorded, probably more than that. Amnon, that raped the sister, was killed by Absalom. Absalom, in this case, when he would commit treason, slept with all of his father's concubines that were left to guard the David city, slept with them on the rooftop. I mean, which kind of human being can do that one? Then, of course, the others also had consequences of sexual sin. There was one that was requesting for the youngest wife that David had, the teenager that was given to David to keep him warm. You need to go and read the Bible to understand this story. If it looks like I'm speaking above your head, let the challenge be that you go and read the Bible. You find it in the book of Kings, book of Chronicles. So one of them requested for that, and of course, Solomon had him executed. And of course, we talk about Solomon. Solomon was recorded of Solomon that towards his later years, that his many wives, turned his heart away from God towards their own gods. So eventually, 4 out of 4 that we know of David's sons died of the consequences of sexual sin. But again, it did not start with David. I believe it started some generations, about 14 generations behind. That was Judah. Judah slept with his daughter-in-law when he chose, because if he couldn't keep his trousers zipped appropriately, he slept with his daughter-in-law. You ask me, how did he do this? So Judah had a son who died. The daughter-in-law was Tamar. Tamar was given to the other son, because he was supposed to do the duties of the king's man, which is to get the wife pregnant, and then the child that is born will be for the late husband, so that his name will not be wiped out from the annals of history. But these sons were recorded to be wicked by the Bible, so they slept with this lady, but they did not get her pregnant. Just before they ejaculate, I'm sorry to use practical words, they spilled their semen. So in my own opinion, they used her for their own pleasure, and God killed them. So Tamar was sent back to stay with her own family, and Judah promised that when the lastborn is grown, he would invite her to come and get married to him, but he never did that. So Tamar disguised as a prostitute, and then Judah went into her thinking she was a prostitute. So for a man who can easily go to a prostitute's place, that is a man who visits such often. So again, what I deduced from that is Judah started this pattern of sexual sin. It was the man who began not zipping his pants in the right place. But then if we also go back to Abraham did not zip his pants in the right place, because he slept with his servant girl, Hagar, to have Ishmael. And then you then have these patterns going down and down and down and down the generations. Now, please, if you're interested, you'll find the stories in the Bible, you find it online. By all means, please go read it so that what we're sharing will make some sense. Now, what am I trying to deduce from this? What are some patterns that you've observed in your family? Truth is, there are no families without patterns, except someone has risen above it and insisted that such patterns be broken, the way Joseph rose above it and insisted that such pattern in his own family be broken. Some families have patterns of marriages don't last. You just find that the mother leaves, the grandmother left the husband's house, then the mother left. Then you find that you are also contemplating leaving. Don't activate. It is your place, and it is. And I want to believe that if you're saying this, God has graced you with the ability to break the pattern. Will it be easy? No. Look at Joseph's life now. It wasn't in any way easy, but he broke that chain of sending another son away. So it could be that marriages don't last. It could be issues of infidelity. It may even be the female that is infidel. There are families like that where you just cannot explain it. But then really, if you sit and start to trace your family line, you'll find that down the line, some persons activated this, and then it's continued biologically, psychologically, spiritually. It's tripartite. But the day you know, the Bible says, and you shall know the truth, and the truth will set you free. The day you know, you can begin to take actions that are in line with what you want for your own life, what you want for the life of generations to come. So like you are that individual who chooses to break generational patterns. It may be a pattern of a family where no one rises. It may be a pattern of a family where no one becomes a university graduate, and on like that. It may be a pattern of where people die prematurely in the family. The family you find, like I said earlier, where there are no patterns, someone stood in the gap and insisted that such patterns be broken. Let this my small presentation be an invitation to you to be that person who chooses to stay in the gap, to insist that negative patterns be broken. But again, it begins with identifying that something happened. There's a pattern, negative pattern that needs to be broken. Why did I go to start with the Bible passage, to start with the story of Judah, even back to Abraham? Because when the Bible says the things that are written aforetimes, they are for our learning, that we through the comfort of scriptures might find hope. If those patterns could be broken in the Bible, it is the same for you. It is the same for your family and the lineage you come from, regardless of how long it has lingered, regardless of how bad it may seem, and regardless of how incapable, quote and unquote, you may perceive yourself to be able to break such. You know, when it says his strength is perfected in our weakness, sometimes it just needs you to bring your weakness. And of course, bringing the weakness, you also come with that solid determination you get through it, endure the challenges, endure the discomfort. If it means you're seeking therapy, by all means, to fix whatever is broken, do that. If it means you're reading a lot of books, by all means, do that. And if that is prayer, by all means, do that. But insist that patterns that are negative, that has gone on for long in your family, ends with you. You can be that pattern breaker. You can be that person who plays the tray and says thus far and no further. And you insist that another cycle of positivity starts with you. So on that note, as always, thank you. It's a brief one. I hope it blesses you. Wish you a wonderful weekend. Bye.